There's a kind of wealth that is born before money, and when it's born inside you, the outside world starts to obey. Because here's the truth most people never fully accept. You don't become rich when you receive. You become rich when you decide. And that decision isn't a loud, euphoric moment. It's a silent decree that shifts the axis of your mind. So let me ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable. Why do some people, even starting from zero, seem to attract opportunities like magnets, while others, even working hard, stay trapped in the same loop? Napoleon Hill would tell you it's not luck. It's not random miracles. It's directed thinking anchored to a definite purpose and a small action repeated with persistence. And here's the paradox almost nobody understands. Thinking big doesn't require big resources. It requires a big identity, because starting small isn't humiliation, it's strategy. It's how a trained mind proves to itself day after day that it doesn't need perfect conditions to move forward. Neuroscience calls it reinforcement through repetition. Small wins carve pathways in the brain, and those pathways become destiny. Hill would call it a mental habit, and mental habit is the invisible skeleton of success. But there's a detail, and this is where most people break. A lot of people try to act rich by copying appearances, spending to impress, living for the image, building a mask instead of a foundation. But acting rich, in Hill's language, has nothing to do with luxury. It has everything to do with inner posture. A truly wealthy person thinks in causes, not excuses, in creation, not survival, in long-term value, even when the wallet is still in short-term mode. And yes, this is spiritual too, because there's an ancient law whispering underneath everything. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. When you change the thoughts living in your heart, you change the kind of life that finds you. Today you're going to understand why ordinary people walked through decades, crises, rejection and scarcity, and still built fortune. Not because they never felt fear, but because they refused to make fear a god. They learned to use a tool Hill repeated like a code. Definite purpose plus trained faith plus persistence. 3 keys, 1 gate. And I'm going to guide you through this like a crossing. You'll see where your mind was conditioned to accept less. You'll recognize the exact point where you sabotaged yourself without realizing it. And most importantly, you'll learn what separates dreamers from builders, turning a big vision into a small action, and a small action into inevitable results. Because when your mind finally aligns, you won't chase wealth. Wealth will start chasing you. If this resonates, comment, "I choose to think big." There's an enemy that doesn't show up on your bank statements, doesn't sign contracts, doesn't knock on your door, yet it decides your life every single day. Napoleon Hill named that enemy with brutal clarity, the lack of a definite purpose. And right beside it, he placed the twin saboteurs, fear and habit. Because when you don't choose a destination with precision, any wind can govern you, and your mind becomes open territory for doubt. Watch how scarcity really works. It doesn't start in your wallet. It starts in the tone of your inner conversation. It's a reversed prayer. You wake up and before your feet even touch the ground, the weight is already there. It won't work. It's not for me. It's too hard. I'm not lucky. And every emotionally charged repetition becomes a groove in the brain. Neuroscience confirms that what you repeat with strong emotion becomes automatic. Your nervous system begins to protect you from trying, as if trying were danger. And then you call it realism, when it's actually conditioning. Hill was precise. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they lack firm decision. An indecisive mind keeps asking for signs, waiting for permission, begging for guarantees. But life responds to command, not hesitation. That's why so many people get stuck in a spirituality of waiting. When God wants, when the timing is right, when someone shows up. Without realizing it, they exile their own responsibility. Here's the deeper diagnosis. You were trained to love comfort and fear the unknown. And the unknown is exactly where prosperity lives. Because prosperity is expansion, and expansion requires an inner yes before any outer confirmation. Even Psalm 23 carries this principle. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That I shall not want isn't passive. It's a state of consciousness, a mind that learns to walk without negotiating with panic. And here's how you know scarcity is ruling. You dream big, but you act small out of fear, not strategy. You delay what must be done. You start and stop. You look for shortcuts. You want results without identity. Hill would say that's the mind trying to receive without becoming. But wealth isn't a lottery prize. Wealth is an invisible construction first, and a visible reality later. So listen closely. Your problem may not be lack of money. It may be lack of mental direction, lack of a purpose so clear that when fear shows up, it has nowhere to attach. Because when you decide for real, fear still appears, but it appears as a visitor, not an owner. From here on, we treat your mind like sacred territory. You don't allow thoughts that shrink you to live inside you as normal. You learn to identify the voice of conditioning and replace it with the voice of command. If you want this kind of reprogramming consistently, subscribe to Wealth Rewired and stay with us, because this isn't just content. It's a new operating system for your mind. Now I'm going to take you into the shift Napoleon Hill hinted at, the one that changes everything once you finally see it. The world doesn't respond to your desire. It responds to your dominant mental state. And your dominant mental state isn't what you say once in a while. It's what you repeat in silence every day with emotion. You can say, I want to prosper, and still be broadcasting, I don't deserve it, I'll fail. I always end up back where I started. Life is a school of coherence. It answers what's strongest, not what's polite. That's why so many people pray and don't see movement. Their mouth asks, but their identity rejects. Hill used the word faith in a way that wasn't religious in the common sense. He meant trained conviction, the ability to hold an inner picture with such clarity that your body begins to move as if it's real. And here's the fascinating part. Neuroscience agrees. Your brain doesn't react only to what happens outside. It reacts powerfully to what you imagine with intensity. Repeated visualization plus emotion becomes programming. Programming becomes behavior. Behavior becomes results. So you're not trying to get rich. You're training your nervous system to live in expansion. And there's a deeper layer, almost metaphysical, where many people feel it in their bones. Wealth is a frequency of decision, not empty mysticism, the sum of focus, expectation, and action. When you truly decide, you stop hunting for excuses. You start noticing opportunities that were always there. Your choices shift, your patterns shift, the places you go, the conversations you tolerate, what you consume, who you align with. It all begins to change, and slowly the world reorganizes around your new posture. Hill called this the mastermind, the mind that connects to other minds, ideas, and pathways. But before you connect to people, you have to connect to your own direction. Because when you don't know where you're going, every path looks right, and every path becomes exhausting. So here's the shift in one line. Starting small is intelligent faith. It's you proving to life and proving to your brain that you don't need motivation to act. You need decision. And decision is a line in the sand. You stop negotiating with the old version of you. That thought that says, when I have more money, I'll start. That's scarcity talking. A wealthy mindset says the opposite. I start and money follows as a consequence of my growth. Because money follows value, and value follows consistent action. And if you want a simple spiritual sign the shift is happening, it's this. You begin to feel peace while you act. Not because everything is solved, but because you're finally aligned. Like an inner psalm whispering, I do not fear, because I know who I am becoming. If this unlocked clarity, comment, I'm starting from decision. And now we leave the concept and step into the territory where Napoleon Hill separates the people who dream from the people who build, the daily mental ritual. Because prosperity isn't an event, it's training. And training needs a method. Hill called it auto-suggestion, not as empty repetition, but as an emotional command repeated until it becomes identity. This is where you take your mind by the hand and say, I will not be governed by improvisation anymore. So I'm going to give you a ritual that's simple enough to start today, yet powerful enough to reroute your life in a few weeks if you do it with consistency. First, a definite purpose in one sentence. One sentence only, short, direct, no poetry. Something like, I build an income of X by doing Y, serving Z with integrity and persistence. Your mind needs a target. Without a target, it becomes noise. And here's the hidden secret. This purpose isn't for the world. It's for your brain. It's a fixed point in the middle of chaos. Second, a 90-second mental film. Every day, before you touch your phone, close your eyes and see the version of you who already lives that purpose. This isn't fantasy. It's neurological rehearsal. See details. The environment, the posture, the eyes, the way you speak. Feel the emotion as if it's now, because emotion is what glues the image into your nervous system. Hill called it faith. Here, faith is decision sustained by imagery. Third, the inevitable small action. Choose one daily action so small your excuses can't negotiate with it. 20 minutes of study, one outreach message, one proposal sent, one page written, one improvement in your service. Small, but sacred. Because the secret of wealthy people isn't doing a lot in one day. It's doing what matters every day. And when your mind sees you keep your word, it begins to trust you. Self-confidence isn't born from pretty affirmations. It's born from promises kept. Fourth, the spiritual cut. Each day, identify one scarcity thought that shows up as normal and cut it at the root. When it won't work appears, you don't argue, you replace it. I'm building, and building has a process. When I'm not good enough appears, you declare, I evolve through practice and persistence. This isn't denying reality, it's choosing direction, and direction repeated becomes destiny. And here's the part that seems simple but changes the game. At the end of this ritual, say it quietly, with presence, like you're signing a contract with your own soul. I think big, I start small, I act like someone who has already decided to win. If this clicks for you, comment, I align with this. Do this for 21 days, not as superstition, as neuroplasticity. You're carving a new road inside you. And when that road becomes strong, the old pattern can't pull you back with the same force. At first, the change is subtle. Your circumstances might look the same, but you won't feel the same on the inside. You'll make decisions your old self would never make. And that's how wealth begins, not as money first, but as command. When you keep the ritual, something starts happening that looks like coincidence. But it isn't. It's an expansion of perception. Napoleon Hill taught that when a definite purpose is held with faith and persistence, you begin to access a field of ideas and opportunities that used to be invisible. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because your mind's filter changed. And your filter decides what you notice, what you choose, and what you move toward. You begin to spot the right contact. You recognize the market need nobody is solving well. You hear one line in a conversation, and it becomes an insight. You find a tool, a book, a video, and it feels like it was placed in your path. Hill called it infinite intelligence. Neuroscience calls it your reticular activating system, the mechanism that selects among millions of signals the ones that match your dominant focus. When you think big consistently, your brain starts searching for big. When you decide to prosper, your mind starts detecting prosperity. But there's a test here. Because the moment expansion begins, fear tries to drag you back with an old sentence. It won't last. It's too soon. People will laugh. And this is where you must understand the game. Life always tests a new identity before it grants a new level. As if it's asking, is this an impulse or a decision? And you don't answer that with anxiety. You answer it with posture. This is where you expand in 3 ways. First, expand your range of action. You started small? Good. Now you widen your reach without losing consistency. If it was 1 outreach a day, it becomes 2. If it was 1 page, it becomes 2. If it was 20 minutes, it becomes 30. Not to do everything, but to raise the standard without breaking the rhythm. Wealthy people don't move in emotional explosions. They move in cadence. Second, expand your environment. Hill's mastermind wasn't just networking, it was alignment. People who grow fast don't grow alone. And you don't have to change your life overnight, but you do have to stop feeding your future with conversations that worship scarcity. Your environment is an altar. What you place on it, you end up serving. So place near you what strengthens your mental faith, the right books, the right content, the right people, the right silence. Third, expand your ability to receive. This is the most spiritual one. Many people work hard, but freeze when it's time to receive, as if growth is guilt. What's blocked isn't money. It's belief. So you begin declaring, I allow good to reach me. I allow expansion. I allow prosperity with integrity. If this hit deep, comment, I allow expansion. When you hold that expansion, something beautiful starts to happen. Your body begins obeying your purpose. You wake up with more clarity. You decide faster. You procrastinate less. You respect yourself more. And slowly, the outer world starts reflecting your new posture. Invitations appear, requests come in, doors open, pathways organize. This isn't cheap magic, it's law. Focus creates perception, perception creates action, action creates results, results reinforce identity, and identity, once consolidated, becomes destiny. There's a moment when manifestation stops being something you want and becomes something you are. And that's when your life changes with consistency, because reality doesn't follow promises, it follows identity. Napoleon Hill said, you become what you think about most, and that's terrifying and freeing. Terrifying because it reveals how many people are creating scarcity without realizing it. Freeing because it proves you can build a new future starting now with mental discipline. To consolidate a new identity, you stop living like someone who is trying and start living like someone who has decided. Feel the difference. The person who tries negotiates with fear. The person who decides speaks to fear and says, I hear you, but you don't vote here anymore. Fear will always show up when you cross old limits. It's a guard of the past, not a prophet of the future. So from this point on, you hold 3 internal pillars. The first pillar is language. Wealth on the inside doesn't speak to itself carelessly. It doesn't curse itself quietly. It doesn't reinforce failure as a joke. It understands that words are instructions to the brain. So when something goes wrong, it doesn't say, I'm a mess. It says, that's feedback. It replaces condemnation with direction. And little by little, the nervous system leaves survival mode and enters creation mode. The second pillar is standard. Your real identity is what you do when nobody is watching. What you repeat when there's no applause. That's why start small was never only a financial strategy. It was a character strategy. Small daily actions are bricks. Bricks become a house becomes territory, territory becomes a kingdom, and you don't rule what you don't build. The third pillar is ambition with integrity. Hill was clear. Wealth that lasts is born from a purpose that benefits others. When you connect your prosperity to service, to value, to real solutions, you're not just making money. You're taking your place in the world. You stop feeling like you're asking for a favor and start understanding you're offering something that heals a real problem. And here's the deepest part. Consolidating identity means losing old versions of yourself. You'll lose habits. Sometimes you'll lose certain company. You'll lose the addiction to approval. You may even lose the comfort of complaining, because complaining is disguised comfort. It keeps you in the same place while giving you the illusion of movement. Builders trade complaints for construction. If you're ready to step into that identity, comment, "I assume my new identity." Now we reach the point where people stop separating spiritual from material, as if God lives on one side and money lives on the other. Because at a higher level, and even in Napoleon Hill's logic, prosperity is the consequence of alignment. Mind, emotion, and action pointing in the same direction. The problem is, many people try to manifest with the mind, while sabotaging with the body. They pray for doors, then spend the day choosing habits that close them. Faith without movement becomes wishful thinking. Movement without faith becomes exhaustion. But when the two merge, effort becomes construction. Here's the key. Acting like the wealthy is not performance, it's inner order. Wealth on the inside creates structure. It organizes chaos. It turns the day into a temple. It decides priorities and protects what matters. And that posture doesn't require money to begin. It requires presence. This integration happens in 3 levels. The first level is stewardship. You treat what you have today like seed, not like trash. You stop despising small, because the person who despises the small is training the mind to never feel gratitude. And gratitude is a quiet magnet for expansion. This is not romanticizing scarcity. This is maturity. You learn to manage with respect. Your finances, your time, your energy, you take government over them. There's an old wisdom that fits here. Teach us to number our days. That's prosperity too. To count, to measure, to steward. The second level is value. Hill repeated that lasting wealth comes from delivering more value than you receive. That flips your whole focus. You stop obsessing over how much can I make and start asking how much can I solve. And when you increase what you solve, the world increases what it pays you. It's simple, but it's powerful. Value is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It's as if life says, you asked for abundance, then become abundance for someone. The third level is alliance. Prosperity loves the right connection. Hill called it the mastermind, aligned minds, multiplying results. Spiritually, this is covenant. You choose to stay close to what expands you, not what shrinks you. You stop asking permission to grow. You understand that sometimes God answers prayers through people, ideas, invitations, and doors, often in the simplest ways. But to recognize the door, you have to be awake on the inside. And here's something that sounds small, but is deeply prophetic. When you integrate spiritual and material, you begin to feel peace while you grow. You stop feeling guilty for wanting more. You stop being ashamed of expansion. Because more isn't ego, when more means impact, dignity, freedom, and the ability to serve. Money becomes a tool, not an identity. And that's why it stops controlling you. If you feel this truth, comment, "I integrate." Because when you name it, you make room for it. And making room is an act of faith. Take a breath, because you've arrived at a point most people never reach. The point where you're not asking life to favor you anymore. You're becoming the kind of person who creates favor around them. And Napoleon Hill would be clear. When a definite purpose meets trained faith and persistence, the outcome isn't maybe. The outcome becomes inevitable. It may take time. It may require adjustment. It may bring tests, but it will not go back to what it was because your mind has seen the path, and once the mind truly sees, it can't pretend it doesn't know. You started with a phrase that sounds simple. Think big, start small, act like the wealthy. And now you understand what it really means. Thinking big is vision. Starting small is discipline. Acting wealthy is identity. And when those three align, you create something rare: coherence. Coherence is the invisible force that makes the right doors appear, the right people emerge, and the right opportunities reveal themselves at the right time, not as magic, as law. Here's a truth with spiritual weight. Heaven doesn't bless your anxiety. Heaven blesses your decision. There is a peace that arrives when you stop negotiating with the old version of you and take inner government. It's like saying, I am not a servant of fear anymore. And in that moment, you don't need to shout at the world. The world feels it. Your posture shifts your presence. You walk differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. And choice repeated becomes life. Now we seal it, not as a pretty phrase, as a signature. Final decree. I decree that my mind is aligned with wealth that is clean, lasting, and rightful. I think big because I was created to expand. I start small because I govern the process, not the panic. I act like the wealthy because I'm disciplined, consistent, and purpose-led. I'm not moved by fear, I'm moved by vision. I don't wait for permission, I create a path. I don't beg for opportunity. I prepare to deserve it. I attract ideas, alliances, and doors that match my new identity. I prosper with integrity. I prosper with wisdom. I prosper with consistency. My mind is renewed, and my breakthrough has already begun. Now hold that for a moment. Let it settle into your nervous system. Because the moment you seal a new identity, the old pattern starts losing authority. If you're serious about this shift, comment, I have decided. And if you want to keep training this mindset daily, subscribe to Wealth Rewired and turn on notifications. Because what you heard here isn't just inspiration, it's a call into the person you're becoming. And if you stay on this path day after day, life will have no choice but to agree with your decision.